And welcome everybody to Bangers and Classics podcast with me, James Ruppert, and him, David Malloy. And I don't know what you did last week, David. I haven't managed to listen. But I do apologise for being missing in action. But it was action. I was on the major M motorway lanes of this country, so I was tearing around the country. But now I'm back. So what did I miss?
Well, in my case, not very much. I mean,
Oh, really?
you had me doing the intro, etc., and it went downhill. I did that badly, and it all went downhill from there. Yeah.
Oh no!
Just the usual. Yeah. Shambles from start to finish. It was mercifully short, though. So.
Yeah. Oh well, that's okay then.
The listeners who are here this week, obviously, either missed last week, or they just managed to blank it out somehow, possibly through copious amounts of alcohol. I don't know.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Absolutely.
I would have done too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, now that you're back from your travels, did you see any cars on them?
Well, it's not where do I start; it's where do I stop, David. I saw an awful lot, so I have to take some cars out or save them for future reference. But no, I saw an awful lot of stuff. I got a very nice thumbs up from a man in a reasonably old E55 Mercedes estate. I was in the Baby Shark, so it was a bit of German love coming my way and his way, so that was quite good. More encounters, well, quite loads of encounters actually with people who wanted to talk about what I was driving and stuff. Same petrol station, which is not what I use frequently, the other day, and it was a young lad. Well, I say young lad, but younger than me, which isn't difficult. He had an E36 Cabriolet, and he was fascinated by the Baby Shark. He was actually quite concerned about how much it was worth, which was what I thought quite odd, really. But he had quite a nice Cabriolet. But he really liked my car. Didn't make an offer for it. I'm not selling it.
Can I ask you a question, James?
Yeah, go on.
When you asked how much it was worth, obviously Baby Shark, did you say to him, "You're going to need a bigger wallet"?
Yeah, well, that's not absolutely. But you see, David, we are beyond that. We don't see things in value terms. We see things for what they are. And they're either good cars, they're either bangers, or they're classics, and that's the way we sort of roll here. Apart from that, I saw a 2CV in which I think I may have seen before, but it's one which is sort of apparently made up from parts. So the person is driving it every single day, so the middle section seems to be unrelated to the wing sections. So he's either restoring it as he goes along, or he doesn't really care, and I'd like to think he doesn't really care, but he's just using it, which is great. And interestingly, I saw some stuff that I have no idea what it is. I saw an Austin something, so it's like a 1930s Austin saloon. I've no idea what vintage it was. And also saw a Ford pickup. Again, that would have been 30s or maybe very early 50s. That's sort of a huge gap in my knowledge, where I do find that cars from a certain era sort of look all the same, don't they? It's a bit like, Edwardian cars. They all look the same. Cars from the 1920s and 30s basically all look the same. I'm sure people will say differently, but I have no idea what they are apart from certain standout vehicles. But it was interesting to see them. There were things on trailers. I saw a Land Rover being a series Land Rover being towed. There was all sorts of interesting stuff. I saw a 968 Porsche, that was good. Overtook an MGB GT, but that's just a few of them. But it was good. It was good to get around the country. It's good to see that people are using their cars more, and everybody's appreciating each other's cars. Lots of thumbs up and waves, and so that's a good thing.
Right. I mean, when it comes to cars looking the same, we've gone full circle there.
Yes, we have. I would agree with you. Yeah. Now I really do struggle with what I'm looking at. Am I behind a Kia, a Vauxhall, a Ford? I really can't tell anymore.
Yeah. They do look very similar.
They do, don't they?
They really do, the SUVs.
Yeah.
And that's it. You can have an SUV, sir, or you can have an SUV. I would like a thick Kia, mate. That's what I would say to them. Anyway, well, what did I spot? Well, I spotted 3 Volkswagen Beetles. The 2 that usually sit at the fast food place, obviously owned by workers there, because they were parked here. The one that was previously looking a little bit untidy, he is tidying it, and it's starting to look better. It's a bit more work, a bit more paint required, but it's starting to look not bad. The other one next to it looks very tidy indeed.
Yeah.
Nice metallic red paint finish. But the other one's coming along too, which is nice to see. Probably a couple of young lads own them. Nice cheap transport, teaches them a lot about cars, mechanics, etc.
Yeah.
And they seem to care for the cars, and more importantly, they use them, which is great.
Well, it is.
And you saw a 968. Well, I saw a 944, a gold one, sitting in a driveway. I imagine it's in use, given where it was parked.
Yeah.
It looked very presentable indeed. And as you know, James, I'm rather partial to 944s.
Okay.
If you listened to last week's podcast, you'll know that. But you haven't, so you don't.
I haven't at all. I do apologise, David. I had really, but I thought I better not let on about how good and competent you were, David, because
we'd be lying then, wouldn't you? You see,
otherwise you just do it yourself. You just cut out the middleman.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I'm planning to do. not. And I also saw. Now, please, listeners, be seated when you're listening to this. Please be seated. I saw a very nice Mimosa Yellow Triumph Stag moving under its own power. And I thought, engine transplant. But it was very nice, actually. It was a nice sunny day. Whoever owned it, had the top off, driving along a T-bar configuration. And I have to say, it looked very nice indeed.
Oh, good.
It was a heartwarming sight. So if I do slag the Triumph Stag off, it's only a bit of fun, folks. It was very nice to see one. And this one clearly was very, very well looked after indeed, which is also nice to see. And again, not a garage queen.
Fantastic.
Shall we delve now into the murky realms of Bangor Classic?
Oh, right.
Going into the 80s with this one for the Ford Fiesta Mark II.
Right.
You remember that, James?
I do remember that, yes.
That'd be your era. That'd be right in your alley.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it was so in my era. I sort of mostly avoided them, really. Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of love for the XR2. It wasn't too far away from the original. I mean, the original Fiesta I thought looked really good. It was a very nice, simple design. But actually, I mean, the Mark II Fiesta is pretty much exactly the same, but it just had a blunt front end, really, didn't it? Apart from that, there wasn't much difference at all, really. And what an incredibly successful car. I think they sold a couple of million of them, wasn't it? It was 1.9 million sales or something. So, but again, it's another car that's pretty much disappeared. You do not see them very, very often. And if you do, they're usually XR2s, which have been, restored or looked after. But a basic Poplar version, you just won't see them at all, really. But they did a job. They were fantastic for an awful lot of people. They got a lot of people mobile and motoring. They were easy to look after, they were great until Rust got them.
That was the thing. It was the Rust that got them. Yeah. I mean, they came out 83. Essentially, as you say, they were just a facelift with a few modifications for the Mark I. And I have to say, I prefer the looks of the Mark I.
Yeah.
I think it was a retrograde step. The public, of course, the buying public disagreed because these things sold like hotcakes. It also was, and again, I disagree with this, but to many people, it's the iconic version of the XR2. My uncle had a Mark I XR2 with the original engine in it, not the CVH.
Oh, right.
And it was a little bit rough in terms of its engine, but looks-wise, I thought it was better than the Mark II. But the Mark II came along, sold very well, the XR2 version, still those lovely pepper pot alloys, and the plastic wheel arch covers, slash protectors, whatever you want to call them, or extensions, whatever you want to call them. And I think they somewhat detracted from the look a little bit, for being absolutely blunt. The grille was the thing that got me. It was a grille that was very badly thought out by Ford. It was prone to stone chips.
Yeah.
And of course, what happened? It rusted heroically. I remember driving around in the 80s and seeing XR2s that were maybe 3-4 years old with massive rust outbreaks right on the grille. It must have been the bane of owners' lives because it's just the design of the grille meant it was in the right place for stones thrown up by cars in front to hit it. And I don't know if the paint wasn't very thick or whatever, maybe it was just the angle, but there's certainly, at best, you were going to find one that was pockmarked, and at worst, you were going to find one that had a major eruption of rust on it.
Yeah.
But the Mark II version did bring along a diesel version, I think a 1.6 diesel, if memory serves me right.
Yeah.
Didn't see many of those in the roads. Back in the day, it was more the sort of popular version than the 1.1. If it wasn't an XR2, it was usually a 1.1 you'd see, as I recall it. They did very well, as you say, James, and in the best year for sales, they sold over 150,000 of them in the UK.
Goodness me.
Yeah, but even then, the Escort sold more. Continued to 89, had a midlife facelift in 1986. A nice, comfortable little car. As I say, I don't think it was a major advance over the Mark 1, and I think in terms of styling, it wasn't. But the key question we have to ask ourselves, punk, is it a banger or is it a classic?
Well, I suppose, it has, progressed, hasn't it? I mean, I still don't find it particularly easy on the eye. It's certainly been a banger for most of its life, and I suppose it deserves, the surviving ones deserve to be a classic now.
Yeah, I mean, it was a successful car. A lot of people bought it.
Yeah,
As we talk about cars, we can forget the XR2, which, although it was a nice little hot hatch, it wasn't on a par with the likes of the 5 Turbo or the 205 GTI, or even some of the other mini hot hatches of the day. But it was still a nice, sporty little car. Parts prices were good, easy to service, that kind of thing. So there was a lot going for it in a number of ways. I'm going to give it a classic status as far as I'm concerned. So we have agreed it has been given the accolade of being a bangers and classics classic. So there you go, Ford. You can stick that virtual trophy on your mantelpiece.
yeah.
And on that note, I think we will take a quick break. This is Bangers and Classics, officially the 9,817th most popular podcast in East Grinstead. So welcome back after the break, and it's time for this week's challenge, isn't it, James?
I suppose it must be. I don't know.
I mean, you remembered we've got a challenge.
Well, yeah. I think the challenge has been going on for so long that mine has come up with this advert has now been removed.
Ah,
But
right.
it's still there. All the details are still there. But it says, whoops, the ad has been removed. But it's okay. All the details are there. So in my head, it's still technically available.
Right, jolly good. Well, this week's challenge, very simple set of rules. I was concerned that you might be suffering some traumatic experiences after being lost in your beard last week.
Yeah.
According to Roland, that is.
Well, he would know because he travels about a lot. He's very familiar with the workings of the world. So.
Indeed, and I believe it was he who commissioned a search party.
Well, it was very kind of him to do that. But I was found alive and well.
I'd have often more just to leave it as it was, but never mind.
Well, I know you would, David, but Roland actually likes me, so there you go.
Anyway, right, shall we crack on? The rules for the challenge will be you have £5,000 to spend, and your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to buy a reimagined car.
All right.
And that's it. Simple as that. So why did you go for it, James?
Well, my car sort of chose itself, really. In the 1970s, we're going back a long way. I do apologise.
It's only 4 years for you.
You could just yesterday for me. Still living there.
Exactly.
As you know. You could buy these cars for they were 50 quid, they were 100 quid, they were nothing. And that's what young people bought. And a friend of mine had one of these in blue, and I remember going to a pool hall in Leighton. So I was in East London, and we were all crammed in. I think there may have been more people than seats in the back of this particular vehicle, and it's the same colour as well. So I just thought, I think I should buy that. It might bring back terrible memories. But the one I chose is a Simca 1000. Great little cars they were. And the ones that got over here, as I say, ended up in the banger market, and you could buy them cheaply, and you ran them for a bit, and then they got thrown away or crushed, which was very sad. But they were fun little things, and it was always fascinating to look at rear engine cars in the day, because as you know, most of the cars were front engines. So if you were into cars, you were sort of poking around underneath it, looking at things, and it was always quite fascinating. This particular, there are none available in the UK. I tried. So there are, maybe there might be like a rally prepared one or something, but there are none in the UK. Otherwise, I would have picked a car over here. So I would have to hop across the channel to France. It was a private seller. It's a 1963. The mileage is 54,000. It looks in very good condition, and presumably that's why the ad has been removed and it's been sold to someone. And the asking price was, when transferred to our money, £4,626. So that's what I would have chosen. And what about you, David?
Right, well, Simca 1000, I think one of my relatives had one of those.
Oh, really?
Back in the 70s, yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty
I think
sure.
a lot of people had them. I think there are certain vehicles which, again, if you look on old film, or you watch an old you watch an old TV series, you'll see a lot of stuff which you would think is incredibly rare, but a lot of people bought them.
Yeah, I think they were quite popular, even with wheel enthusiasts, because was it the Simca 1000 Rally or Rally 2 models?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I think Rally with a white E at the end. Well, just the standard Y, if memory serves me right.
Yeah.
And I believe they were also the first car, and I could well be wrong about this, to use the Poissy engine.
Could be, yeah.
Because that was the engine that ended up powering just about everything they made. Obviously the Chrysler Alpine, the Talbot Solara, the Horizon, even found it in the Bagheera, the Matra Bagheera, and the lower powered version of the Matra Murena used it. So it was quite, and of course the Simca 1100.
Yeah.
So yeah, it became a ubiquitous engine, and the designer of the Poissy engine was also the chap who designed the Matra V12 racing engine.
You're right.
Georges Martin, if memory serves me right. So very, very clever chap. If only he sorted out the rattly tappets in the Poissy engine, but there we go. The Matra V12 doesn't have rattly tappets. Oh no, it sounds like the trumpets of Jericho played through Nigel Tufnell's amplifier.
All right.
It's lovely. You've got to hear it live, or you've just got to hear it live. Silverstone Classic, there might be one racing this year. If there is, particularly if it's a 650, go and listen to it. It will make your day. You might be deaf for a week or ringing ears for a while, but hey, it's worth it. Trust me on this.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I didn't go for a Simca. I decided to go for something a bit more modern. And I thought, let's go for a Smart Roadster. And I thought, well, it's going to be a Roadster Coupe. And so I had a look about. I could have had a baggy, it's 129,000 miles anyway, Brabus Roadster for under 4,000. But I thought, I don't know, it's a bit heavy in the miles for me. I could possibly do better. So then I looked at eBay, and there's a Brabus Roadster Coupe, 67,000 miles, full service history. It's bid, so it's currently £4,000 with 6 days to go, so it's not going to be under budget. And in case you're wondering what the Brabus is, it's the most highly powered version, commercially available version. I think it's 101 horsepower from its 3-cylinder engine. And I have been in a Brabus. It's very nice. The only problem, of course, with the Smart Roadster Coupe, indeed the Smart Roadster, was the gear change, which was, it was comical. It took its time to change gears, let's be honest. But it did sound like you'd have a Porsche 911 in the back. So pretty good. Anyway, I digress. On eBay, I found one. It's a Smart Brabus Roadster Coupe exclusive, to give it its full title. 76,500 miles. It's got a few leaks. And these cars, soft tops, they do. The worst leak, he says, is I think the driver's door mirror, which obviously I would get sorted if I was buying it. I would look into sorting that, but they do leak a little bit. But by way of consolation, he is going to chuck in a hardtop if sold at or near the asking price. This is a few age-related marks. It's silver in colour. It is, however, a Cat D car, and the seller advises that it was before his time. He did some research, and it was some damage to the valance and the exhaust bracket, and it was simply the cost of getting new parts for it to put the insurance company off, relative to the car's value. Yeah. There's nothing structural, as far as I'm aware, that was damaged on it. There's lots of new parts over the last little while. It's a new front springs and front dampers, new tyres all round, water pump, front discs and pads, etc. A new clutch as well. It's a 55 plate, it's in Kent. The service history isn't with the car. As a Cat D, that's not uncommon. It's usually kept by the insurance company or a previous owner. But I looked at the MOT history. It's a few failures over the piece for minor things, and there's nothing in the history that really would concern me. So what you get there for your £4,250, which you might be able to bid down a little bit on that one, because it's a classified ad price. So if you contact the seller, you might be able to get them a couple £100 off. Maybe not, who knows. But you get a nice looking little car with, as I say, if you're close to the asking price, you'll get a hard top thrown in, and a car phone as well.
Yes, good.
No, you don't get a car phone. I made that bit up. But you get a very rare little car. It's an attractive little thing. 3-cylinder engine, sounds great, good fun to drive, and it's perfect for the summer. And if you get the leaks sorted out, which is I would do, it's also pretty good for the winter. So that's my selection, James. You'll find it on eBay if you care to go and look there.
Okay.
What do you reckon? I think we've come up with two different cars, but
I think we have, haven't we?
yeah.
Really? Yeah. I think there's one for someone who would want a modern car and someone who would want an older car. So we're both winners. I think.
Yeah, I think they're both appealing in their own way.
They are, yes.
Yeah, it's not. None of us have come up with a clunker this week, I don't think.
No.
No, which is a miracle in my case, but there we go. Anyway, I think we'll take a break before we move into the last section of the podcast.
Okay.
This is Bangers and Classics, the motoring podcast presented by James, the Ice Cream Kid Rupert, and David, the Spot Cream Kid Milloy. And so you join us after the break, and we're going to have a very rare occurrence here. It's a Bangers and Classics public service announcement, and it's going to be made by the esteemed Mr. Rupert.
Well, I mean, the point is, if you've got nothing better to do, on June the 3rd, I will actually be attending a rather fantastic sports day at Bradnam, which is a village in Norfolk. So if you are in the area or you've got nothing better to do that day, there is an absolutely superb sports day event, which does include classic vehicles. It's all free, so you don't have to pay any money to get in. But essentially, apart from your standard classic cars, there's a lot of American stuff turns up. There's also commercial vehicles. There's also tractors. If you're into tractors, there's a whole row of rather marvellous tractors, motorcycles, and just about everything really. But also, I will be there with the lorry. I won't be participating or in the beauty contest lineup. I'm actually selling ice creams. All the proceeds go to our village hall because that keeps the village hall going. So do come over and say hello if you want to. I'll be there with Mrs. Bangonomics, and we'll be selling ice creams and teas and things like that from the lorry. There's actually a freezer in the back of the lorry each year. So it's nice. We haven't done it for a few years because of reasons. But if you want to see classic cars as they should be seen, there's an awful lot for you to do. And actually, if you've got children, there's sports day races and stuff. So if you hang around to the afternoon, they could win prizes by running up and down in a field. So it's all good fun. So it's all in the best possible taste, David. So it'd be nice if you could pop down, but I know it's a tiny bit further than you would need to come. But the Friday the 3rd, and come and see us.
Yeah, I'd love to come, James, but hitching a lift at a distance might be quite difficult.
Oh, I suppose it could be, really.
I mean, people won't pick me up, let's be honest.
I suppose they wouldn't, no.
No. Would you let us stick of the dump in your car?
Yeah.
Anyway. We have a danger mobile this week.
Oh, do we?
We have a danger mobile, yeah. It's not a much loved car.
No.
I'll be honest to say that. It's not great well lamented by anybody, but it's a Chrysler Neon.
Yeah.
Which was for sale here around about the millennium, I think from 1990 to about 2003 or so. And I think just over 17,500 made their way to the UK, were sold in the UK. That was the sort of zenith of ownership numbers here.
Yeah.
And as at the last set of figures from the DVLA, there's under 300 left, 291 on the road with 449 unsawn.
Yeah.
So not a lot. It's a cousin of the PT Cruiser, I believe. Front wheel drive, of course. You could have any engine you wanted as long as it was a 2-litre one.
That's right.
But you did have a choice of a manual or automatic box. And it had fairly good equipment levels. It was reasonably cheap to buy. It appealed to some people perhaps because it was a traditional 3-box saloon. It may still appeal on that basis. It's your old style, old fashioned 3-box saloon. Bonnet, passenger compartment, boot. Not the best looking car, I have to say, if I'm being honest. It drove tolerably well. It probably wasn't really up to the best of the European rivals. It was worth saving because it's a hallmark car that marked Chrysler's return to Europe in a more major way than it had been. It's cheap to buy then and again now. There aren't many for sale in the UK, but those that are you'll find many of those are under 1,000, and I think most are going to be under 2,000. And that includes, I think, probably the RT version, which was the best performer. You get a slightly more powerful version of the 2-litre engine, 150 horsepower, as opposed to, I think, about 131. Again, no ball of fire, but there's only 22 of those left on the roads. It's not an exciting car to drive or own, but you might call it a worthy car, and it's certainly worth a better fate than being driven or not to extinction.
Well, yeah, I believe it was designed to sort of for American students. It was designed for that market. It was like a first car that students, when they first went away to college, that parents would buy for their offspring. I believe that was the rationale for it. And if there was a spin-off that people bought it as a second or third car, then so be it. But yeah, it was a a sort of a fairly odd little thing, but it sold in reasonable numbers. You could get an LX. I think it was called, there was an SE, but it had hardly any equipment with it, which was odd for an American car. But certainly an LX is better. Head gaskets, I think, are a weakness on them, and bits of suspension can go off, and people don't top up the aircon, so that usually goes. So it's sort of a banger, and it's a shame that there are so few of them, because now when you look at it, actually it's not a bad looking car actually in its own way. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
it's a curiosity, and also, as you say, it's a traditional saloon which was rapidly going out of fashion by then.
Yeah, and you got, I suppose, quite a lot for your money, and you still do.
Yeah,
It's not a car that's going to rock your world,
no,
but that doesn't mean that it's not worth saving. So
no.
anyway, that's somewhat, I suppose, ambivalent note. Not intentionally. They're not bad cars. Hopefully they do survive. But we shall move on now to the final part of this week's podcast. And this is inspired by, if you want to use the word inspired, we use it advisedly, I hasten to add. You might remember that Vic and Bob, that's obviously Reeves and Mortimer, did a promotional video for the BBC back in 1996, which featured such classics as World Championship pan fighting, my favourite of course, international anvil throwing, 3 men in a bath, detective in a wheelbarrow, and this one. There's 2 versions of the clip you can see on YouTube. One truncates this section, the other one's got the full section in its glory, and it is pole dark on mopeds. Try to imagine that, pole dark on mopeds. If you don't know what pole dark is, look it up on Wikipedia. It's a period piece, Downton Abbey, that kind of thing. Not at all my idea of fun, but I like the idea of doing it on mopeds. So that got us thinking here at Bangers and Classics, and we thought, well, what other program could you do that you'd replace a horse with a vehicle? And, well, what would we do? What program would we choose? And why would we do it? So that's a kind of challenge, I suppose. And, well, I think we've both looked at this and come up with different things. I hope we have.
Well, I hope so, absolutely. I think if we come up with the same thing, we should be committed, really, somewhere.
Again?
Yeah.
We've only just got out of...
well, there you go.
Yeah. Well, anyway, what did you get, James? What did you do?
Okay then. I'll do the embarrassing one first. Now, you may have seen a film, or not, in the middle '60s, and it was called Cat Ballou, and it starred one of our favourites, Lee Marvin. And the great thing about the great thing about that film, which also had Clint Eastwood in it, actually.
Marvelous.
Actually, not in a very traditional role that we all know him, but Lee Marvin was always the worst the way for drink. Lee Marvin is one of our favourites at Bangers and Classics. We have named a podcast after him. But in this, he would get drunk, but also his horse would get drunk. And the horse was called Smokey. And when they were drunk, they would lean against a wall to hold them up, and it was one of the most amusing scenes in cinema history. But actually, the really significant thing is the horse that was called Smokey won an award for his performance. The horse was so accomplished. And I know you know horses and very expert on them, but he was a sort of a celebrity horse. So I propose giving him a break And also Lee Marvin should have a chauffeur as well, of course, for obvious reasons. But yes, let's replace Old Smoky with a Ford Mustang from 1965. So there you go. That's what I would do. There's a joke there somewhere, but I'm not quite sure what it is. But
older old pony, if you ask me.
yeah, exactly. So there you go. That's my very existential choice there, which I hope you didn't see coming. But you may say, "Oh no, I've done."
No, I didn't. No, I didn't go for that one at all. Well, I thought Black Beauty, the 70s TV series in the UK.
Yeah.
One of the horses who lives with us looks a bit like he's like Black Beauty, only he's more brown than black.
All right.
But yeah, I'm quite sure we could give Black Beauty the horse at home, and we could give him some time off from his hectic filming schedule by replacing him with a black 2CV. Now, it's 2CV, great cross-country ability, and it's going to look after your eggs.
Yeah.
Now, I can assure the makers of the program that it'll be cheaper to run and service than a real horse. I have absolutely no hesitation in saying that. And you've got a couple of big advantages over the horse.
Yeah.
You've got the sunny days, obviously, on the horse. That's great. You're riding, you've got the wind about you, etc. Well, you've got a great big sunroof and a 2CV opening roof. But when the weather turns bad, you don't get soaked because you can close the roof.
Yeah.
That's great. There's absolutely no mucking out the stables with a 2CV, which is great. I can assure you that is a big advantage. And it'll tow. It'll do pretty much everything else that Black Beauty could. And you probably wouldn't even notice the difference. So all you want is an autonomous driving 2CV, paint it black, and you've got a brilliant new program. I suppose, James, you'd be upset if it was electric, wouldn't you?
I don't care at this point, really.
I'm going to go for hydrogen-powered 2CV. Or we can just go for the traditional two-cylinder one. After all, the emissions that it puts out are negligible.
Yeah.
So there we have it. So you've Cat Blue with a Ford Mustang, or you've Black Beauty with a 2CV. Now, I think both those are winners.
They are really, aren't they?
I think so.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's right.
it. Yeah, we managed to get Clint Eastwood and Lee Marvin in the program as well, which is even better.
It is, isn't it?
Well, I say the program, the podcast was not the program. Yes, shockingly done. Anyway, that's it for this week.
Yeah.
Glad to have James back.
Marvellous to be back. Goodness me.
From his travels.
Yeah.
I believe the truth is, of course, he was spending some time at the Home for Hammer Horror Actresses doing his civic duty. So thank you very much for listening. Hope you tune in next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do. And just a final reminder, June the 3rd, you can come and see me. I've got to go and pack the freezer into the back of the lorry. If anyone wants to give me a hand, please do.
That was a hand.
That was you giving me a hand.
I'm me giving you a hand, yeah.
Yeah.
So, cheerio, folks.
Yeah, bye-bye.